Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Thursday, the 28th day of July, 2022. I hope that this Thursday finds you healthy and safe, and that you and your family are also healthy and safe, and that the needs of you and your family in terms of food and shelter and clothing, as well as health, are being met today. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field and the first responders, whose job it is every day to save human lives, and those that pick up garbage for us to keep streets and sidewalks and parks and highways clean, and those that make deliveries for our convenience, and double blessings upon those that are out here trying to rescue, deliver, recover the victims, the children and teenagers that are the victims of child molestation and pedophilia, the victims of human trafficking and sex slavery, the victims of prostitution, even adult victims, and child prostitution, the victims also of pornography and child pornography, and double curses on the perpetrators, the profiteers, and those perverts that are out here trafficking in this human misery. Finally, blessings upon those that are homeless. There are nearly 600,000 men, women, and children on the streets of the United States of America, and millions around the world in similar or worse conditions, and blessings upon them. For theirs is the kingdom. If you could do anything to help, do it. So, couple of things I want to go over today. Couple of things. I want to discuss the Julius Randle to the Lakers rumors. I did a video on it couple of weeks ago, but I want to revisit that and update it. But before we do that, I want you to listen to. I want to call him a clown, but maybe it wouldn't be right to call him a clown. Sports Illustrated is a very influential publication. Before there was the internet, Sports Illustrated was probably the biggest sports magazine in the United States for sure, in the world probably. Very influential. And when I mean influential, what I mean is the power of media. And I don't want to go into great detail, but the power of media is this: its ability to shape how we think about any subject. That's the power of media. The ability to shape how we think about any subject. And since the internet and information age has exploded over the last, say, 20 years, particularly, there's been many other media that shape and influence how we think. And traditional ones like a Sports Illustrated had to, reorganize, reshape themselves, reinvent themselves, because they were strictly paper and, ink. But now it's electronic. It's on the internet, social media, so on and so forth. So they have to influence. But what has happened in the influence peddling business of news and media is the consumers, some of the consumers like us have gotten smarter. Some have gotten dumber, unfortunately, but some have gotten smarter in that you can read through certain things. For example, in Knicks Nation, we understand in Knicks Nation that there's a hatred for the Knicks. And if you want to ask yourself, why is there a hatred for the Knicks? It goes back a long way. And again, I don't want to go into all the history, but it goes all the way back to the championship years of the Knicks. In the Knicks championship years in the early 70s, late 60s, and when they were really good and a threat to win in the early mid 70s, there was an arrogance in New York, because at that time, the Mets win the World Series, the Jets win the Super Bowl, and the Knicks win the championship in a 12-month period. And you couldn't tell nobody in New York that there was no other sports town on earth like New York at that time. I remember, I was little and I remember it. And then at the same time, Dr. J was making his name in NBA. Dr. J was from Roosevelt, Long Island. Well, my family's from Hempstead, but we claimed Dr. J because there was a man that was influential on Dr. J's life named Don Ryan that was in Hempstead. And so we were all claiming Dr. J. We were all proud of him. And then in the early 70s, the ABA Nets started winning championships too. So it was really a time to be a New York sports fan. But that set up an animosity and an hatred toward New York from the media. Then you go through decades of mediocrity in New York. And then you get a Patrick Ewing. and the media started becoming bigger, harder, more negative toward the New York teams, and then including the New York Knicks. And then Ewing, coming out of Georgetown, was really anti-media at Georgetown. Even when you see him, if you remember him back at Georgetown, he was waved the media away. He didn't want to talk to him, and Coach Thompson would support him in that. And when he came to the Knicks, it was the same thing. And so that just created more animosity, and more animosity toward the Knicks and toward New York. Then, of course, came the '90s with Pat Riley, when Pat Riley came on board, and it was box office. To say it was box office, and not only that, the Knicks, now Pat Riley and his genius went from Showtime running the Lakers to turn the Knicks into a form of bad boys, rough and tumble and tough and defensive minded. That was the '90s Knicks, and we were winning. And again, it created more animosity. Then Riley leaves. That was a big deal. The way he left, faxing his resignation, going to Miami, already having a deal in place in Miami. That created a bunch of issues between us and Miami Heat back at the time. And then, of course, James Dolan eventually takes over as the sole owner and operator, and he proceeds to put his ego in. Then when the media was backlashing on him, he banned certain media from coming into the locker room, from coming to the Knicks, and they have never forgiven him for that. So that's giving you a brief history, very brief, but they've never forgiven him for that. Okay, and he don't care. Okay, it's New York. So now it got to the point where, because Knicks Nation is probably the biggest fan base in all of basketball, as far as basketball, I can't speak about the Yankees or the Mets, they're bigger probably, or even the Giants, but the Knicks Nation, as far as basketball, there's no bigger fan base probably in the planet than Knicks Nation, right? And so being negative on the Knicks would create a backlash or a response, and people would watch just to get angry. Seriously, just to get mad. I used to do it just to be yelling at the TV. And that makes money for outlets like ESPN and Sports Illustrated. So they can be negative on the Knicks, they can hate the Knicks, they bring people on to hate the Knicks, and it creates more money. Advertising brings money. So if you get people watching, even if they hate what you're saying because you're speaking negatively against their team, it's a moneymaker. Okay. And that's been the theme for the last 20 years. Then you add to it the futility of the Knicks and of their management, and you see what we got. And so now we in New York Nation and Knicks Nation, we know that there's a hatred of the Knicks. It makes money, and it seems to be in vogue all the time. And people that don't know anything about basketball or anything about the Knicks, they know they could just come on and start bashing the Knicks and sound like they know what they're talking about. Okay. But now we get a management team that's extremely competent. That's why I call them the Don. We have not had a management team this tight. We've had pieces of it, like with Donnie Walsh. We had pieces of it for a minute, but we haven't had it this tight. I can't remember when it's been this tight, where where Dolan is giving them the autonomy to do what they want to do, where they're deciding we're not talking to the media and it's a group effort and everybody's on the same page, where they're making plans in the inner sanctum and not letting anybody know. They give you hints and they show you what they're doing. But as far as verbalizing it to the media, they're not doing that. It's great. If you're a New York Nation, if you're Knicks Nation, you understand. This is great, right? And so you get some clowns out here that's so used to bad management from the Knicks, especially in the last 20 years. Isaiah Thomas comes to mind. Glenn Grunwald comes to mind. Bad management, making bad decisions, trading away assets, trading away first round picks, making bad decisions to try to get good quick, skipping steps, basically, until now. So yesterday, this clown comes on for Sports Illustrated. And what I have learned over time, Knicks Nation, is there are certain dudes that are basically mouthpieces for either teams or individuals. Brian Windhurst, I keep calling him Windbag, but basically he had, over the course of LeBron's career, he has made his career talking about LeBron. And LeBron probably gave him some information because he would break information about LeBron before anybody else does. This was back in the time when he went to Miami, when he was early in his Cleveland career, so on and so forth. So he was like, he was on LeBron's nutsack, so that he was, breaking news on LeBron. That's his career. Okay. There's another dude like that too. I forgot his name, but there's two dudes like that. This dude Simmons for the Ringer. He's basically a Celtics mouthpiece. See, he might as well just break out the green pom-poms because that's how he reports when it comes to the Celtics. And when it comes to the Knicks, there's a hatred, obviously, right? So this dude here that we about to hear, I'm gonna play his little clip from yesterday. He's a mouthpiece for Danny Ainge. And what I have learned, and I hope you also get to learn this, it's been a blessing to me. When it comes to media, you have to carefully look behind the words. Don't look at the actual words in terms of trying to see that. No, look behind the words. And we'll talk about how to do that in a second. But Tom Thibodeau speaks in code all the time. But you got to listen behind the words. And so does Leon Rose. And you got to listen behind the words. Leon Rose has given us a tremendous amount of information from the two public statements he has put out. One about the young core, and the one the canned interview he had, I think it was with Mike Breen. Those give us a lot of information about what they're thinking. But people they want something splashy. They want something controversial, something they can write a negative headline about. But he don't give them that. But he gives you enough that if you're listening behind the words, he's telling you what he's going to do. Let's listen to this person that is on Dan Patrick. And it says, this guy named Jason Shepard put the tweet up, and he says, Chris Mannix, and listen to this now. Chris Mannix, who probably knows Ainge better than any other media person, was on the Dan Patrick show today talking about potential Donovan Mitchell trade and timeline. So let's look at this real quick. He said, Chris Mannix, and then he prefaces it by saying, who probably knows Danny Ainge better than any other media person. What's that telling you? Well, whatever this gentleman is telling you about Ainge is 100% fact, is what they're trying to imply. Whether that's true or not, we're going to find out. But what they're implying here is whatever this dude Mannix tells you about Ainge is facts. So that's the premise of this clip. Let's listen to it.
The Donovan Mitchell situation, it certainly was front burner, and then it cooled off. Are we looking at the same time frame if something happens in a couple of weeks?
I think it could be that, but it's almost more likely to be even longer. I feel like some of these reports that are coming out there about Mitchell to the Knicks it's almost wishful thinking.
He said some of the reports coming out about Mitchell to the Knicks is wishful thinking. So he's trying to say the Knicks may not make a deal with Utah. And the way he said it, though, wishful thinking, is like we're hoping for something that's not realistic. In other words, it's the delusional Knick fan quotation. Did y'all catch that? Wishful thinking. Let's continue.
On behalf of some, look, I wrote this today on SI.com. Like, this is exactly the kind of situation Danny Ainge wants to be in.
In other words, Ainge got us now. That's what he's saying. This is exactly the situation Ainge wants to be in. Ainge got us now. Knicks, he's telling us Mitchell to the Knicks, that's wishful thinking. That's not real. That's delusional. Are we really being delusional with him wearing New York stuff? Are we really being delusional with Ainge asking for 7 to 8 picks? But see, he's trying to set up a narrative that's false. First of all, it's not delusional. Mitchell is interested in coming to the Knicks, and the Ainge is interested in dealing him to the Knicks. Second of all, for him to come out and say, this is where Ainge wants to be, That's trying to let us feel like Ainge has got the cards in his hand. And he doesn't. Okay? He ain't got no cards. Okay? We'll talk about that in a minute.
If he's not competing for a championship, this is the situation he wants to be in. To have a young, highly talented player that he doesn't really want to have on the roster anymore because he wants to go into a rebuild.
He doesn't really want Donovan Mitchell on the roster. He just told us that. So it's delusional for the Knicks to think we could get him. But Ainge don't really want him on the roster no more. Are you hearing the contradictions now in his statement in order to protect his boy, Danny Ainge? Let's continue.
With 3 years left in his contract and multiple suitors out there, like with Rudy Gobert, Danny found someone that was just desperate. He just smells desperation on teams really well. And Minnesota came in and offered those 4 draft picks and young players and got a deal done. Someone, whether it's a few weeks from now, a few months from now, the trade deadline, someone's going to get desperate.
Notice what he said. A few weeks from now, a few months from now, or at the trade deadline. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say now. He didn't say anyone was desperate now. He said somebody could be a few weeks from now, a few months from now at the trade deadline. So let's put together what he said. It's delusional. It's fairy tale for the Knicks to think they could get him. Ainge don't want him, but he's got him under contract for 3 years. Ainge is in the position that he wants to be in, but nobody's desperate right now for Donovan Mitchell. Let's continue.
And there's some obvious choices or candidates out there right now. The Knicks.
First, it wasn't realistic for him to go to the Knicks. And the obvious candidate, though, is the Knicks. You can't make this stuff up, y'all. So first, it wasn't realistic for the Knicks to think they could get him. But the obvious candidate for desperation is the Knicks. He is pushing so hard a narrative to increase the posture of Ainge. It's ridiculous. It's really, if you listen to it, it's ridiculous. See what I'm saying? Listen behind the words. Wait a minute.
They could get desperate. They've wanted Donovan Mitchell for...
Wait. This is important, y'all. He said the Knicks could get desperate. He didn't say they was desperate. He said they could get desperate. Let's talk about this for a second. Was it not reported by Shams, by Begley, by Wojnarowski that the Knicks and Utah was in serious conversations just a couple of weeks ago? Wasn't that reported? That's facts right there. We're not talking about delusional. They was in serious conversations. But nothing got done. So let's put it all together. They were in serious conversations discussing Donovan Mitchell. Nothing got done. The Knicks are not desperate. What does that, just put that together. What does that tell you? The Don made his deal and told Ainge, take a walk and find a better deal. Find a better deal. Because there's no team that can offer a better deal than the Knicks. Yes, some people would say, well, other teams like Toronto can offer 4 unprotected firsts. Yes, they can. And when they do, they won't have nothing left. They won't have they're cleaning their cupboards. Again, there's only one team that can offer 4 unprotected firsts and still have first round picks going all the way through. It's the Knicks. You don't think the Don understands this? What? Ainge wants the Don to bid against himself, and the Don ain't doing that. He said, go take a walk and go find your best deal. We are prepared to walk away. Leon has walked away before when he don't like a deal. And he has pushed to get the max out of a deal. Everybody in the NBA knows Danny Ainge. I told y'all when we first started this about a couple weeks ago, proceed with caution. Because you're dealing with the rip-off artists. Being an agent for 20 years, you think Rose don't know? You think Brock Aller don't know? You think Walt Perrin don't know? You think even Scott Perry don't know? Yes, they all know that this man's a rip-off artist. Jack the Ripper, baby. And they know who they dealing with. Here's our best deal. Go find a better one. That's what they trying to do. And this man was sent out to try to make a posture that the Knicks are weak, to try to put pressure on Knicks Nation to say, get a deal done. Get a deal done. Because in the past, when Knicks Nation yelled like that, Dolan would do something stupid. Especially like when I had respect for Stephen A. Smith, which I don't anymore, he would be pushing, you got to get Carmelo Anthony at all costs. Just open up the checkbook, get him. And he did. And it cost us all the building we have been doing. And they're trying to create that again. But the difference now is we have a different management team. The owner has let the management team make the decisions. He's not interfering. As much as people try to say Dolan's going to step, Dolan only interferes when we're in a long losing streak and somebody being stupid and stubborn like we saw last year. But other than that, he's going to let the management team. And even then, you could see he's going to ask Leon Rose and the team what y'all think. Because he's paying them to do that. This is the difference now than past Knicks. But some of these guys are hoping that memo ain't came out yet. Okay? Listen to the rest of this clown.
For years now, Leon Rose used to represent him, CAA in New York. Miami, if Boston gets Durant and other teams move around, but Sixers picked up pieces. Miami could say, look, Donovan Mitchell's better than Tyler Hero. We'll throw Tyler Hero, 3 first-round draft picks, whatever else on the side that you want. Phoenix. Look, that was a tough exit for Phoenix in the playoffs. They could.
So, wait a minute. The Danny Ainge is going to take Tyler Hero and 3 first-round picks from Miami for Donovan Mitchell. Come on, man. Oh, my gosh. You see what I'm saying? So, Knicks Nation, we in the driver's seat. There's nobody that has a package that the Knicks can offer better than what the Knicks can offer for Donovan Mitchell. Nobody. And Don is playing hardball. He's telling you, go get a better deal, knowing that he can't. Knowing that he can't. And he's telling you, these are the players I'm going to send you. And that's it. We're not dealing with what you want. This is what we'll send you. And he's ready to walk away. Yo, we in good hands, yo. I'm telling you. So whether we get Mitchell or don't, we in good shape. Now, I want to speak again. Let me just tell you, some of y'all still tripping with this crap on Jaylen Brown. The only reason Jaylen Brown is being discussed is because it's for freaking Kevin Durant. He's not just being discussed because he's not happy in Boston. He's being discussed because it's for Kevin Durant. Stop piping, man. Get off that. We not going after Jaylen Brown, nor should we right now. Okay? Y'all need to stop. Y'all. Whew. Anyway, about Julius Randle. Let's talk about him. So earlier, a couple of weeks ago, Mark Stein reported out of Las Vegas, out of the Summer League, that he talked to some source that said if the Knicks get Donovan Mitchell, they would be looking to trade Julius Randle to the Lakers. Then Shams reported that the Knicks were engaged in talks with the Lakers. Okay, so you got 2 witnesses right there. 2 good witnesses. Okay? So it was dependent, though, and this is the key, on a Donovan Mitchell deal. Now, I don't know why that was. The only reason I can possibly think that would be a contingency is if Donovan Mitchell was talking through his reps that he don't want to play with Julius Randle. That's the only reason I can see that's happening. He don't want to play with Julius Randle, and at the same time, he does want to play with an Obi Toppin, and at the same time, Leon is saying, okay, we'll do it that way. Okay, that's the only reason I could see it. But other than that, if the Knicks walk away from this Mitchell deal, then I think Randle's going to stay. I know they need to create space for RJ's contract, and Westbrook's contract would easily help do that. But next summer, D Rose expires. So that 14 million is off, off the books. You got 1 year, then you got one expiring deal right there with Fournier. Fournier becomes expiring, at the end of this season. So he would only have 1 year at 18 million left on his deal. Rose would be already expired. So you got those two things. That money between the two of those guys, that's RJ's money right there. Okay, that's RJ's money. So you could make that up in that regard, because RJ going to sign the contract probably in October of this year, and then next year that money starts kicking in, whatever it is, and so it won't start more than like 30 million a year, and so that 30 million is covered with Fournier and Derrick Rose, which they will move. Okay, everybody else except for Randle is really on a cheaper contract. Even Mitchell Robinson, 17 million is a cheap contract. That would not be a top 5, in a lot of teams in terms of salary. So, the Don has managed the salaries well. So what about Julius Randle? There was a clip that went about yesterday from one of his antics. This one was against Utah. I remember Rudy Gobert was trying to be nice to him, and he pushed Rudy Gobert away and started this whole thing, and it just got out of control. I guess his son wasn't there because he was acting like a petulant child right there. It was ridiculous. And I remember during that little melee, Donovan Mitchell tried to calm down. He waved down Mitchell, and Mitchell walked away. It could be Mitchell don't want to play with Julius Randle. And it could be that if the Knicks get him, that's a contingency. They'll send him out. Now, based on what this fool is talking about here, either Ainge is going to cave, or we're going to walk away from the Donovan Mitchell deal. Okay? The Don will walk away from it. Walk away from the Donovan Mitchell deal, I'm going to tell you, Quentin Grimes starts at the 2. It's going to be Jaylen Brunson, Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, and Julius Randle. Julius Randle will start at the 4. The bench will be tremendous. My man Deuce may not get as much time as I'd like to see him, because you're going to have Emmanuel Quickly, you're going to have Derrick Rose, you're going to have Obi Toppin, you're going to have, if they don't trade Evan Fournier, he'll be on the bench. I'm telling you, he's not starting this year. I'm 100% guarantee you right now, Evan Fournier's not starting. And so you're going to have a tremendous bench. They're going to have to make some moves. And this is another thing I'm going to talk about in a second. The draft picks coming up in 2023. We're going to talk about that. But Julius Randle would probably be the third option. I'm predicting RJ Barrett to be the first or second option this year on the Knicks. It's that time. It's his time. You draft a guy third overall for this purpose, for him to get to this point in his 4th season. And so he's going to be your number 1 option. Jaylen Brunson probably be your second option. Okay. Then Julius Randle. Brunson is not going to just feed Randle because he's yelling for the ball. Brunson is a leader. He's going to control the team. He's going to dictate what's going to happen. Okay. And I really do believe in my heart of hearts that Julius Randle really doesn't want the mantle of the team leader. It doesn't suit him really, and he doesn't really want it. He don't want that number 1 option mantle. I think it's a little too heavy for him. So he would welcome a Jaylen Brunson taking over. It's RJ Barrett he might have a problem with, because RJ Barrett is so young, and he's come up from a kid at 19 to now 22, and I don't know how Rand's going to handle that. But I think I know RJ is ready. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic. But that's why I'm thinking there must be another move. And with regard to these 2023 picks, we got 2 number 1s. And some of y'all talking about Victor. We're not getting Victor. You'd have to be one of the scrubbiest teams in the league to be able to get Victor. Okay? And we're not going to be. The Knicks are not going to be in that position. They're going to at least be, to me, in the top 8. So they're not going to be in a position to get Victor. But they may want to trade these picks. If we don't get Mitchell, they might want to trade these picks for something else. I don't know what else. We'll see. But I don't see us needing 2 first rounders in 2023 unless you move all of these veterans. You're going, where your room coming from? That's what I'm wondering in terms of playing time, in terms of pecking order. So I see them, if Ainge want to mess around, I could see, to me, the end of the Donovan Mitchell deal would be the Knicks make another trade for somebody else and use those Dallas picks. The Dallas pick and their number one in 2023, or a Dallas pick and the number one in 2024. If they use those picks for that purpose, I can see the Donovan Mitchell deal done. Not happening. Okay, because, Don ain't having it. And so that's going to be important to see. We're going to see how this plays out. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but it's going to be how this plays out. But right now, I'm telling you, the Don gave his offer. He's not moving off his offer, and he's prepared to walk away. And clowns like this are being sent out to try to pressure the Don to change his stance, and he ain't doing it. And that's good news for the Knicks. If we end up with Brunson, Grimes, Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, and Randle, I'm fine with that. Even better if we end up with Obi starting and we done traded Randle. I'm good with that too. But either way, we're going to be in good shape if we end up with Brunson and Mitchell. Yeah, great. But we're not giving away the store. I feel good to know we got a management team that's got this thing under control, that knows what they're doing. I've been telling y'all that from the beginning, okay? And it's true. Yeah, for you hear clowns like this contradicting themselves and spilling all over themselves by the nutsack of Ainge to try to make them look good. We in good shape, yo. We in good shape, man. So with regard to Julius Randle, I don't know if they're going to move him. If they don't get Donovan Mitchell, they might keep him because Leon Rose doesn't want to give Julius Randle away. Okay, he's going to want something for Julius Randle because Julius Randle, even though he's a second or third option, he's a high-level second or third option. Really is. So you're going to want to get something for that. And so he's not just giving away Julius Randle, for chips. He's not a bagger. He's not going to do it. So that's what I feel is going to be happening at this point. And if we don't do the Donovan Mitchell deal, he's going to wait until he gets a good deal for Julius Randle. And if we do, then he'll trade him. But if not, we might start the season with Julius Randle. But I still feel like something else is coming. It's too much of a log jam. And some of y'all need to quit asking about players we don't need. Looking at this one or looking at that one. We don't need no more guys. We're trying to make room for the guys we got right now. Okay, we're at that stage. We're at critical mass right now. So we need to really alleviate the log jam. That's what I'm saying. There's going to be another move. There's a log jam at the 2. There's a log jam at the point, right now with D Rose there. And because of Randle, Obi's not going to get the minutes he needs to get. Something else I smell something else coming, but I'm not sure what it is. Right now, they didn't pull the trigger on Donovan Mitchell yet, but I see something else coming as a backup. And we're going to see probably, before the end of August, I think we're going to see something. I don't know what it is, but we're going to see something. Anyway, y'all enjoy your Thursday. Be safe out there. Stay healthy. Sure.